Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back on the updates 1.101 dev server, and it's time to have a look at the Q-5 early. This is a new ground attacker that is coming into the game for China. It's going to be at rank 6, battle rating 10.0, and as you can see, it's going to be after the F-84G. It was kind of interesting to wonder, is it going to be after the H-5 or the F-84G? Seems like, as we said, it's going to be after the F-84G, so this will make this one a lot more easier to grind through, which at least for me personally is a big plus. So what is the Q-5 early? The Q-5 early, or well, just call it the Q-5 from now on, since it's the only one in game. This is a Chinese design, which is based off of the J6A. It does actually change a hell of a lot of stuff from the J6A. The J6A is a license-built version of the Soviet MiG-19, which is why it looks very similar to it, but I would definitely say the Q-5 is an indigenous design to China. What China needed at the time was a fast ground attacker, and that is what they created in the form of the Q-5. And what they gave to it over stuff like the MiG-19, even though it lost a little bit of speed because of obviously the internal bomb bay they installed, and also some other stuff, they gave it a little bit more power in the form of firepower. So it still has the standard two 23mm guns, the Type 23s, but they have more ammunition. 240 rounds overall, 120 ammunition per gun. And you can see them mounted on the side of the pilot, which is really nice. Looking at the engines it has two engines, which are Shenyang Liming WP6As. They do have afterburners, and you can see the afterburner thrust is 3,220 kgf. Also, of course, the fuel tank is below them here, and also the oil cooling systems on the top, the main fuel tank being behind the pilot. Looking at the general armor of the vehicle, it does have a decent amount around the pilot, 10mm in front, 10mm on the bottom. My guess is to try and keep him alive from ground fire, 25mm on his back, and 16 for his head. The bulletproof glass is 60mm on the front, so maybe you'll be able to effectively head on in this thing, which will be kind of nice, and, you know, be able to kill some enemies like that with the 23s. The main thing, though, that the Q-5 is, as we talked about, is a ground pounder or a cast plane. And I've got to say, unfortunately, in that role, it kind of is a letdown. So don't be fooled by what you're going to see from the secondary weapons menu. It is slightly bugged right now, and I'll show you why. So we have the offensive 23s. They have armored targets, air targets, and stealth. So, you know, the armored targets giving 29mm a pen, the air targets giving 29mm a pen as well. It's that API shell. This one just has more API than this one. That's basically the difference. And then you have Type 250, which allows you to install 250 kilo bombs, and then you have the HF6, which means that you can install Type 91 unguided rockets. Now, what this actually turns out with, you actually start this vehicle with no secondary armaments, which is a bit of an issue. You may look at this and be like, oh my god, it has so many rockets on it, right? This is crazy. No. Unfortunately, the thing, as I said, is bugged, and instead of all of those rockets, you get 14. So you get 14 Type 91 heat rockets, and what these are, they actually pen a lot. You know, 283, 245, 141. So whatever you're going to hit with these things, you know, it's going to hit hard, which is really nice. You also, as we talked about, you know, have the bombs right here, which are 250 kilo bombs. These have an explosive mass of 97 kilos, and you can actually take them in a configuration where you can carry 1,000 kilos worth of bombs. Two are actually in the bomb bay. I'll actually show you that right now, just to, you know, give you an idea of what they actually changed from, you know, the J6A to this aircraft. The internal bomb bay is really interesting to see. The cockpit also is beautiful. You know, I think it looks really nice, really simple, but it doesn't need to be anything crazy. You can see the hydraulic arm there, which is, you know, lovely to see. Good clearance behind as well, so you can see what's going on. And obviously the good old throttle hand and the one on the stick. And this plane it loses about 200 kilometers an hour max speed from the J6A, but as I said, it gains stuff in ordnance, which is basically, you know, how it's going to work. Unfortunately, this machine does not have a ballistic computer, so you can't like guide the rockets in or anything like that. But as I said, it does have a bomb bay, so the bomb bay looks like this. You can see it's pretty cool, right? So it's in the center of the plane. And it means that you can have access to 4 250s. The two 250s that drop first are the outer ones. They drop together. That actually makes you lose a ton of weight. And then the other ones drop in a single fashion. So therefore you can have them, you know, you can technically hit 3 targets at once with them, which still, you know, if you compare it to something like the Phantom, or if you compare it to something like that, it's not really going to be great, is it, you know? But from a jet point of view for China, there isn't really anything that fulfills the casserole at this level. I'm still kind of surprised this thing's at 10.0. I would personally maybe drop it down to 9.7 just to give it a chance. Otherwise, what is the point in using this over something like a J6A, because of the fact that it has quite that low, you know, bomb load. Its guns are still very powerful, you know, the 23s. You'll still be able to run stuff down efficiently, as long as you're not put into top tier. You can still do the elevation wiggle. And I've just got to say, isn't this just a stunning plane? For some reason, I am kind of mesmerized by how this one looks. There is a lot of really nice looking planes in the game, you know. There's stuff such as the Mitsubishi, right? That's a beautiful plane. Stuff such as, you know, the Lightning looks really nice. But this one, for me, might take the cake as just a really beautiful plane to look at. And obviously with its afterburners off, that's what it looks like. So yeah. It's just really cool. There's just a lot, in my opinion, to like, you know, about the aesthetics of this aircraft. But it doesn't have any customization options. You know, you only get the silver camo. Hopefully we get some nice marketplace camos for a vehicle like this. And I'll just show you what the rockets look like. You can only take 14 of them overall, so even if you just take them by themselves without bombs, it just means that you're lightening the weight and you're giving yourself less options in a casserole. So you okay, we're going up against BF1 BF110 F2s. The main thing is, you know, you're either going to take, if you're looking for a casserole, you're either going to take the 4 bombs with it, or you're just going to take, you know, the rockets and the bombs. You're never going to take it in this configuration, because why would you? You're just limiting yourself with the amount of stuff that you can bring. So yeah, it's kind of a weird setup with this machine. Once again, I'll just show you. There's literally, you know, no ballistic computer on this, not even allowed to hit the weaponry button because there's nothing there. This is what the rockets look like. They're pretty big rockets, and as I said, they do pen quite a lot, so, you know, there is something to look forward to on that. They also have very good muzzle velocity, so generally they should be able to actually do quite a lot to the enemy. It's just the fact that, you know, you only get 14 of them, they fire together in realistic, so that's technically 7 strikes. And as I said, if you compare that to stuff like the Phantom, if you compare that to other machines, even like the Su-7B, even the standard Su-7B, not even the Su-7B KL, which has extended munitions, this thing kind of pales in comparison. But I've got a feeling if this does get dropped to BR, or even if it doesn't, the only way it's going to see play at 10.0 is as just an out-and-out fighter. I don't think you ever use this as a vehicle, which is... I don't think you ever use this as a vehicle which is an actual ground pounder, unless you're wanting to really use it in ground realistic. But even then, if you use it in ground realistic, guess what? You don't have a vehicle which is at 10.0. Your highest vehicle right now, the ZTZ96A, sits itself at 9.7. So you'd have to up tier the ground vehicles to run a CAS plane. And doing that is suicide. Don't do that ever in realistic. There is only a very few set of times where that will actually work out very effectively for you and your team. So that is a bit of a problem, you know. So you're just going to run this in aerialistic for now, probably, you know, as just a fighter. If you're going to run it instead of the J6A, maybe you have that thing spaded, maybe you want to give this a go, or maybe, as I said, they actually lower the BR of this thing and put it to 9.7. If the Lightning can go to 9.7, if the F-104 can come out at 9.7, and the Su-7, which this thing is about half the speed of, by the way, can come out at 9.7, I don't see why this candidate here is a 10.0 right now. I definitely think it could easily go down to 9.7, and yes, you know, there will be people who complain, especially people at 8.7 and 9.0. I understand the issues that there will be with this aircraft. You're going to have to fly very defensively to play against it, but that doesn't mean it's impossible to kill. It just means that you're going to have to try different tacts on it, right? You're going to have to try different things to be able to kill it, such as ramming it, or, you know, defensively fly. Otherwise, this thing is kind of dead on arrival. You know, it's a vehicle which really, I don't think it has a place at 10.0 unless they add in, you know, unless they add in some higher tier ground vehicles, and maybe you can run it in ground realistic, but even then, like, it just doesn't have the armament. I don't know how you would, I don't know how you would convince somebody to fly this thing unless they have nothing else in the Chinese tree. Because it's going to come in expensive RP-wise, it's going to come in expensive SL-wise. There's a better, technically, version of it if you want to just run aerialistic in the form of the J6 at the same BR. You've got to give it something to be usable. And I think that something is dropping its BR if you're not going to, as I said, give it a berth in ground realistic. And if you, let's say you drop its BR and it overperforms and it does crazy well, just put it up. It's exactly what they did with the F-104s and the Su-7s, gave them a bit of the limelight, and then, you know, put them up. So now they just get clubbed by 10.7s. I don't want this thing to be dead on arrival. I want to at least give it a chance. You know, the Chinese tech tree has so many memes around it, and so many negative things around it, you know, the copy and paste stuff, the just worse version stuff, like, you know, the ZTZ96s compared to the T72s. Like, just give it something, you know. This could be that something. This could be that vehicle where you go, alright, let's give it a go. And I hope they do. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Battling Bacon, Blackie, Chris Giltnane, Conte Baraka, Daniel Stanton, Elove Goat, Jay Wilt, Martinez, Trigger Hippie, Universe, Eugens Terry, and also I'm Devilish and Samuel Slick for supporting the channel.